bro has gathered the terminally online producer Avengers. So Stardust just dropped, and it genuinely feels like Danny Brown is out here collecting trans, queer, and hyper-online producers like they're fucking Infinity Stones. And the result is one of the most forward-thinking, unhinged, and exciting rap albums of the modern era. And while the collaborator list definitely looks out of left field for a rapper who's been in the game as long as Danny, but honestly, it's not really that much of a surprise. He entered the scene in his 30s and immediately started dropping forward-thinking after forward-thinking project, evolving at an age where most rappers are slowing down and definitely becoming cringe.
Fuck Eminem, you is lame as hell. Ain't nobody listening to your old ass.
Finger bang, chicken wing.
He doesn't really make music like a normal human being, and that can be shown through his delivery alone. He's somehow able to bounce his signature tone off of the experimental production, regardless of the style. Atrocity Exhibition is gritty but cartoonishly wacky, scaring the hoses like a fever dream of chaotic innovation, and now Stardust feels like one of the most in-the-loop, electronically aware, and hyper-modern albums any rapper has made in the past decade. Whoa, the lighting's changing because the sun's going down. Okay. So how exactly did we get here? How did a rapper that's quite literally unk status suddenly enter his full girl boss electronic era? To be fair, like most of you would probably say drugs, and although it does seem like this entire project was fueled by drugs, it's actually the exact opposite. Danny has always presented himself as an off-the-wall and cartoonish character. A lot of his early music kind of feels like he was just living this fun, loving, chaotic lifestyle. But unfortunately, that is far from the case, as he experienced heavy substance abuse issues for basically his entire career. He's talked about this in his music for years, but by 2020 he hit genuine rock bottom. He managed to quit a bunch of substances, but alcoholism was the thing that kept dragging him back, partly because he used alcohol to cope with intense stomach pains caused by an undiagnosed disorder, which I can relate, brother. I can relate. In 2023, things finally hit a breaking point. Danny checked himself into rehab for alcoholism right after considering quitting music altogether. I was surprised to find that this occurred not long after the release of Scaring the Hose, which is one of Danny's most viral projects to date. Whilst in rehab, Danny Brown began listening to 100 gecs, an artist that alongside Sophie inspired much of the electronic cross hyperpop wave in the modern day. I suppose 100 gecs is good rehab music, but I don't think I've ever listened to that music sober once. The 100 gecs album would algorithmically transition into Wall Socket by Underscores whilst Danny Brown was on a plane ride, which seemed to completely rewire his listening habits. It also shifted his entire perspective on how music could actually sound and how he wanted to produce his art moving forwards. But here's the thing, this kind of reinvention is nothing new for Danny. For over a decade, he's chased innovation over mainstream fame. He literally had Charlie XCX on XXX before Brat kind of pissed me off by being plastered everywhere and labeled as an album that you just weren't allowed to dislike. Danny's relationship with boundary-pushing electronic music goes way deeper than just a few collaborations. He's been signed to Warp Records ever since Atrocity Exhibition in 2016, which already tells you the kind of artist that Warp sees him as. This isn't a normal rap label, it isn't even a rap label. Warp started in England in 1989 and very quickly became the home for anything that was too weird, too futuristic, or too experimental for the mainstream to be able to handle. They helped pioneer sounds like bleep techno, IDM, and the entire culture of listening to electronic as an art form instead of just club slop. This is the label that homes legends like Aphex Twin, or Tekra, Boards of Canada, and One Tricks Point Never. Mount Rushmore for the extremely swag artists. Over the years, Warp evolved into a more overarching experimental powerhouse, signing artists like Flying Lotus, Bibio, Hudson Mohawk, and eventually Danny Brown himself. So Danny Brown landing on Warp wasn't like a quirky mismatch, it was a natural evolution for his sound. Warp has always been the home for artists who want to push their sound forward, and Danny's always been a rapper who treats his album like fucking lab experiment. It's a perfect storm, the experimental rapper entering his prime somehow so late in his career, linking up with one of the most legendary experimental labels on the planet, and it seems like Stardust is where that partnership is reaching its final form. Danny Brown has always had the ability to go mainstream. He has the technical skill, the charisma, the songwriting chops to create chart music whenever he wants. He just chooses not to. He's never fallen into hip-hop nostalgia or failed to evolve with the times. For him, innovation is like survival. Stagnation isn't an option. His newfound fascination with modern hyperpop and experimental electronic music naturally led him to some of the most forward-minded artists within the scene. Artists such as Jane Remover and Underscore. These younger voices didn't just inspire him, they actively reshaped his sounds and listening habits. Suddenly, Unk was being exposed to entire micro-genres and production styles he'd never been tapped into before, giving him countless new textures to pull into his music. And it's easy to assume that this level of curiosity and open-mindfulness was amplified, if not outright enabled, by Danny's sobriety. Instead of numbing himself, he was listening. He didn't let inspiration come to him. He was treating music like a full-time job, 8 hours a day type shit. Sobriety didn't make him safer, it made him sharper, and opened him up to a new wave of electronic chaos. There's an unspoken rule in creative circles, especially among young people like me who, you know, occasionally recreationally obliterate our serotonin, that sobriety is the death of art. Like the moment you stop altering your brain chemistry, the universe repossesses your imagination, and suddenly you're making music that sounds like something that weird NPC friend would recommend, or like, I guess, co-worker music, that dumb trend. When you're in the trenches of creative work, drugs can feel like a cheat code, a shortcut to ideas, emotions, or perspectives you wouldn't normally touch. Stimulants become essential due to a lack of time, and burnout only worsens these problems. There's a romantic myth about the tortured, intoxicated genius, and it's something that many creatives still fall into. But here's the comfortable truth that Danny Brown proves. Sobriety doesn't kill creativity, it kills the illusion that chaos is creativity. When Danny got sober, he didn't lose his edge. He found the clarity to sharpen it. He stopped drowning the ideas and started hearing them. So we've covered the addiction, the rehab, the hyperpop awakening, the Warp Records alignment, and the artistic rebirth. So what about the part that makes Stardust so insane? The roster. Danny went out and assembled a lineup of artists so chronically online, experimentally unhinged, and ahead of the curve that the tracklist reads less like a rap album and more like a highlight reel of the internet's weirdest rising producers. Creating a project full of so much personality ends up feeling alive in a way that most modern rap albums just don't. Like the little ecosystem that forms when you leave a half-eaten sandwich on your desk and produce on FL for 3 days straight, which, let's be honest, probably happened to at least half the people that feature on this album. So to really understand Stardust, we need to look at everybody that helped build it, because the album doesn't sound the way it does on accident. Every collaborator that Danny pulled in carries their own genre, scene, voice, their own production philosophy, and their own musical identity that is full of so much personality. Each one represents a different mutation of the modern electronic underground. Hyperpop, digicore, breakcore, noise pop, alternative indie, all smashed together under Danny Brown's chaotic supervision. So let's go through them one by one, break down exactly who these people are, why Danny chose them, and what dimension they add to the sound of the album. So let's start with Jane Remover, an artist that I've been following since she started making music under that weird name that I can't pronounce, you know, like Don't Talk Shit About Me, that song. Jane is slightly annoying to me, primarily due to the fact that she's so fucking good at everything. Case in point, I was listening to a shoegaze project called Venturing recently. I enjoyed some of the tracks, and then I suddenly recognized the voice and instantly realized, yeah, this is just another fucking Jane Remover side project. I literally cannot escape her talents like a parasocial jump scare. Alongside this, Jane invented an entire new genre with Dariocore and reinvented what it meant to make rage music. She blew up making tracks that kind of sound like a teenage diary was corrupted into a zip file, and over time evolved into this kind of glitchy, noise-drenched singer-songwriter music that's kind of apocalyptic but also kind of hopeful. Danny and Jane collaborated on the track Psycho Boost, which is actually swag as fuck. She co-produced and added electronic atmospheric textures to the closing track All For You, $, I think it's just All For You, giving the finale this dreamy digitized glow. Alright, Underscores, another artist who's been shaping the electronic underground in a huge way recently, crafting glossy, hedonistic tracks that blend internet culture with tightly built concepts from album to album. Started releasing dubstep under the name Underscores at just 13 years old, and by the age of 16 already placed second place in a Monster Cat mixing contest. The motherfucker couldn't even drive. Started gaining traction during the COVID era, breakout project Fishmonger, a raw, energetic album that leaned heavily on punky guitar riffs, and leveled up again with Wall Socket, a full-blown concept album disguised as a pop record. Underscores brought their signature hyperpop leaning production to 2 tracks on Stardust, shaping both Copycats and Baby. On Copycats, they're responsible for one of the most catchy hooks on the entire project. Quadeca might have one of the weirdest and unexpected glow-ups in the modern music landscape. He started creating rap content on YouTube in 2014, famously creating the 20 Styles of Rap series, alongside FIFA videos and somehow beefing with fucking KSI. The thing is, he got good, really good, insanely good, and he began to rebrand. The comedy content faded out, and he started dropping these dense, carefully produced tracks with extremely unique visuals. Although I enjoyed and was surprised by the production on tracks like Sisyphus, his 2022 album I Didn't Mean to Haunt You turned everything on its head for me. Instead of following a traditional rap trajectory, it's a full-blown like indie electronic ghost story concept album told by the perspective of a dead narrator that's haunting his own home. This album actually featured Danny Brown, who was rapping from the perspective of the house. Since this point, Quadeca has continued to create extremely unique sounds, blending art pop and hip hip-hop spectacularly. Even his project Scrapyard, that essentially just consisted of unused songs, was really fucking good. It leaned deeper into this experimental, metallic, textured production. Basically a self-taught producer who's basically a composer, whose work feels incredibly cinematic, emotional, and intentionally weird. Don't expect that kind of music from me, by the way. Not every YouTuber that makes music is going to actually be good, but there is an EP on the way. Quadeca contributes with not just a feature, but he shapes the tone of multiple tracks. On the Book of Daniel, he delivers production and outro vocals that frame the album's sobriety and kind of rebirth themes, and he returns on the song What You See, providing sonic texture and a lot of emotional clarity for a track that highlights Danny Brown's prior sex addiction. Two tracks that are unapologetically Danny Brown, don't get me wrong, although sound akin to a lot of Quadeca's work. Frost Children are one of the artists featured in this video that I was sonically unaware of outside of a few tracks that I kind of stumbled across algorithmically. Frost Children are a New York-based sibling duo, Angel and Lulu Prost, who exist at a chaotic intersection of hyperpop, club music, fashion, and internet culture. Early stuff was more like glitzy noise pop, but suddenly they were dropping these kind of like post-ironic club bangers that you're seeing all the time at the moment. Danny asked Angel to record a poem for the back end of the track Starburst, but they didn't just stop at one. They contributed spoken word pieces across multiple different tracks, kind of gluing the album together as a sort of spiritual guide, although it does just sound like a first date with a extremely pretentious individual. Frost Children also show up on the track Green Light, which kind of feels like Danny Brown like fucking sprinting through a neon club at 3 a.m. was geeked the fuck out. 8485, I think that's how you say it, is a Canadian singer, songwriter, and producer who is heavily affiliated with the underground hyperpop scene. Another artist that I have been aware of for a while, although I haven't followed too clearly until this album's release. She rose out of this kind of hyperpop digital wave, but instead of leaning into that blown out chaos, she carved out this more like ethereal emotional lane, a mix of more like gentle melodies with the glitchy production, and some like kind of shoegazy atmosphere at times. She's known for building her songs around her soft vocals, and I always find this kind of bittersweet quality to her work, like singing from a snow globe that's just getting fucking violently shaken. 8485 appears on the song Flowers, built around this kind of hyperpop leaning, airy instrumental with very bright synth pads, like a kind of a 3 a.m. insomnia spiral. Danny apparently recorded his vocals first, leaning into the more vulnerable side of the album, but the track didn't fully work until 8485 stepped in, with her voice layering over the production perfectly. If you've ever watched any of my streams, you'll know that Femtanyl is an artist that I glaze endlessly, hence the t-shirt obviously. Also, by the way, if you are watching this somehow, I did not know whether this t-shirt was official. I thought it was. If it isn't, I will PayPal you the money for it, because I want you to get the money, or just restock your merch. That might be better. Femtanyl is what happens if you kind of take a breakcore producer, feed them nothing but monster energy, anime, and broken MIDI files, and you get one of the most chaotic voices in the online electronic scene, utilizing aspects of breakcore, nightcore, rave edits, SoundCloud distortion. Femtanyl's style pulls heavily from the modern online rave culture, many usage of breakbeats, harsh production, pitched up vocal chops, trance stabs, and digital noise that is somehow used as melody. Danny Brown and Femtanyl first crossed paths on the song, I think Me and Mine. It's all got numbers and shit with all this shit's hard, which was released back in October 2024. Fem appears on the track I Love My Life on the album, again, just numbers and all this, the raw XD kind of style, which is apparently Danny's favorite song on the album. The production is sharp, club driven, bright, urgent, and very unhinged. Just works so well with Danny Brown's voice. It's just the perfect meld of Femtanyl on a Danny Brown project. It's not too Femtanyl like the song that they did together that was under her name. It's fully Danny Brown. It works so well. JOHNNASCUS was another artist that I was not too familiar with outside of his work with Spider Gang. His sound seems to be just like industrial metallic sounds slammed together with digicore, with some just fucking distorted blown out 808s thrown in for good measure. It's like if Trent Reznor was raised on SoundCloud, Roblox, and 100 gex. JOHNNASCUS seems to be one of the less talked about figures within the kind of internet trap metal resurgence. Artists who bridge all these genres in an incredibly heavy way. He features on the song 1999, which is easily the most unhinged track on the album. This metallic, like glitch corroded energy that gives me some fucking quite a bit of anxiety, to be quite honest. It makes me a little bit anxious. Danny's delivery is already manic, but JOHNNASCUS's musical chops on this album just turn it into full schizophrenia. Next is Isbroki, whose verse on Whatever the Case is actually my personal highlight of the entire album. Isbroki first came to my attention as one of those kind of weird online Lil Darky clones, although very, very quickly proved me wrong. Her tracks are filled with so much personality, from the beats to the ad-libs to the visual art packaged with the music that is all drawn by her. Her flow is also ridiculously impressive at times, taking influence from not just the chronically online era of rap, but also old school boom bap. Also, Brokey, restock the standees, I want one. I'm just asking like these people to restock merch basically in this video. On Stardust, she delivers the verse on Whatever the Case, and I do think she does kind of body Danny on this, although it is not a competition. Her delivery just cuts through the production. It's frantic, it's chaotic, and it fits the track's tone perfectly. Danny isn't just letting this new generation improve his projects, he's letting them completely outshine on the album. NNAMDÍ is a Chicago-based Nigerian-American musician who basically seems to refuse to actually pick a genre. He grew up in Illinois and started out as a drummer before bouncing between different local bands. Eventually he launched the solo project NNAMDÍ, which is where things seem to get really weird. Music that kind of jumps between pop, punk, hip-hop, electronic, indie, math, everything. He's also the co-owner of Super Records, one of Chicago's key DIY labels. Over the years, he's dropped a bunch of critically acclaimed projects, so Please Have a Seat in 2022, which really cemented him as a force. Ukrainka is one of the most unique additions to Stardust. She grew up nearly 1,000 kilometers from Warsaw, in a city that was actually 40 times smaller. She originally studied railway transport and was on her way to working with goddamn motherfucking trains, but she decided that wasn't her path. Instead, she took a leap of faith and moved to Poland. By 2022, she was winning awards for best new Polish talent. So yeah, doing bits just outside of, I guess, where we would be paying attention to it as Western music listeners. Musically, she sits in a delicate position between indie electronic, dream pop, and I guess kind of alt pop. She features on the 9-minute epic alongside other collaborators Zheani and Cynthoni, formerly known as Sewerslvt. Her vocals play the perfect opposite to Danny's chaotic flow. The beat underneath just keeps shifting. Warm synths, gentle piano, full on fucking breakcore, and it smooths all these transitions through. Zheani is another artist that I was extremely unaware of that also features on this track. She comes out of Bundaberg, Queensland, Australia, and is known for a self-described fairy trap sound, a freaky blend of rap, trap, new metal, electronic dark pop. After modelling and putting together an art exhibition in Melbourne, she decided to take music seriously, releasing 6 EPs between 2018 and 2023. Zheani's vocals cut through the track with this sharp, fragile intensity that lifts Danny's verses instead of actually competing with them. Danny reflects on addiction and everything he survived through. Her vocals float over a wall of breakcore, crafted by the album's perhaps most polarizing collaborator, Cynthoni, formerly Sewerslvt. Cynthoni is somebody that I've already covered extensively on my various channels, so I won't go too deep on any of the various controversies. You can just watch this instead. Under the alias Sewerslvt, they were essentially responsible for shifting breakcore's entire reputation, taking it from frantic, glitchy experimentation into more atmospheric, emotional, jungle-inspired music. It shaped an entire corner of the internet. Tracks like Mr. and Pretty Cunt defined that kind of washed out, depressive, neon-drenched breakcore aesthetic that's plastered over every single piece of social media. As Cynthoni, they've kept pushing that style forwards with cleaner production, deeper synth work, and a more cinematic approach to that chaotic rhythm. So it makes sense that Danny Brown would utilize Cynthoni for the 9-minute closer. Cynthoni's production is like a spine to the whole thing, a chaotic breakcore spine. Danny Brown rapping over fucking breakcore. So that's Stardust, an album that shouldn't exist perhaps, but somehow makes perfect sense. A sober Danny Brown teaming up with some of the most online, experimental, and Gen Z producers and making one of the strangest and most forward-thinking projects I think we will see for a while. And if this is the direction he's heading now, we might be looking at another great experimental era in rap music from Danny Brown, led by a 40-something-year-old Detroit legend and a swarm of hyper-online weirdos that grew up worshipping him. And I think that's honestly pretty beautiful, to be honest.